Hello. This is my presentation. It's an exploration of relationships as seen through the short story Do You Know Where I Am, written by Sherman Alexie. My name is Mateo Valenzuela. This is for my creative writing class. Yeah. All right. We met at the first mixer dance of our freshman year, where we confirmed we were the only Native American Roman Catholics within a 3-mile radius of campus. So we slept together that inaugural night in open defiance of Pope whomever and kept sleeping together for the next 3 years. Alexi. So, what I really like about this quote and what I think is shown even through this picture is this kind of sense of similarity that drives relationships, right? You find someone who's similar to you, whether they share similar views, interests, hobbies. In this case, it's a background. They're the only Native American, um, other Native American Roman Catholic that they can find at this Catholic university, right? That makes the other person very special, in a sense, and that's what kind of drives the relationship at first. That's how they meet. Relationships are formed by this sense of mutual desire for each other, where you guys have something in common, and you want to get to know that other person for that reason. And you see that in this image. They're at a party, and they're the only, presumably only Native American people there, and they are smitten, right? And also that this sense of that I want to point out this sense of defiance of Pope whomever, right? They are young, they're rebellious, they want to rebel with other people, they have that desire, and that also drives that relationship. And additionally, you see this sense of of worldly flesh desire for another person that we'll get into in later slides. Sharon was Apache and I was Spokane, but we practiced our tribal religions like we practiced Catholicism. We loved all the ceremonies, but thought they were pitiful cries to a disinterested God. Alexi, right? And the picture I chose for this was a Catholic wedding, right? You see this very ostentatious church. It's beautiful. It looks amazing, right? Who wouldn't like it? Maybe people who don't believe in the God, right? This Catholicism, right? There are many sects of Christianity, but the Catholicism in particular, um, is very ostentatious. It's very there's a lot of ceremonies and rituals and just these things that are passed down, man-made, not necessarily um, exactly tied into God and Jesus, right? Their ceremonies, right? We see that in how they're viewing this um, Native American religion as well, right? Their tribal religions were practiced like Catholicism, right? It was all ceremony, right? Once again, there's this sense of similarity that we're seeing in these people, right? They are not religious, right? And I wanted to point that out for the rest of this presentation that these people don't appeal to anything higher. They appeal only to um, their very worldly customs and traditions, I would say, and that kind of drives their relationship as we can get into. We were inseparable. We ate our meals together and fed each other. Sharon and I always tried to take the same classes and mourned the other's absence whenever we couldn't. We read the same books and discussed them while we were naked and intertwined. Oh Lord, we were twins conjoined at the brain, heart, and crotch. Alexi, right? I wanted to point this one out as well. This shows like that natural puppy love that you get in relationships, right? When he says we ate our meals together and fed each other, right? That's very like PDA, young, kind of weird couple, maybe, right? And you see that in that image right there, where these people are not afraid of anyone around them. They're embracing each other fully, right? Very PDA, maybe a little weird. Who knows? That's everyone's own idea. Right? But they were intertwined. I want to get into what that means, right? He says brain, heart, and crotch. That's intellectual, romantic, or just more relational. They shared a fondness for each other and obviously a sexual desire for the other person, right? They were intertwined in many ways. Their relationship was brought forth from more than just sex, right? And sharing the same that they were both Native American, right? They had an intellectual desire for the other person. Intellectual needs were met. They were fond of the other person. They actually liked who the other person was, and obviously sexual attraction, right? I think what that says about relationships and this quote in general is that the relationships tend to be driven by more than one thing, right? And these close young relationships are very puppy love kind of situations. We paid our taxes, owned a modest home, and made love an average of 3 times a week. We didn't make nearly as much money as our parents, and that could be viewed as our failure, but we felt successful, right? And you see this image of this young couple, you know, AI made, right? But they look middle class, right? They don't have the nicest clothes on, right? They got a savings jar right there. They clearly need to save every penny. Um, but they're happy, right? They're smiling, they're in love, right? They were an average couple, made love an average of 3 times a week. I don't feel like that's anything crazy. It's nothing horrible. It's nothing great, right? They were kind of an average couple. They fell into averageness, and we'll see kind of where that drives their relationship, right? But we didn't make nearly as much money as our parents, and that could be viewed as our failure, but we felt successful, right? Success in life, success in relationships is so much more dependent on who you are with than what you guys are necessarily doing, how much money you're making, what house you live in, right? How much nice things you have, right? What is going to drive contentment and happiness ultimately is going to be a person in your life that you are in love with, that meets your needs and you meet theirs. And I think that's kind of what this says about relationships is that it's very important who you marry because life will come at you and you have to be ready to be happy to be with someone, right? I think that's kind of what that says about relationships. That even these average relationships, people can still be happy if you're with the right person. Going off that, that's the problem, she said. Everything is so normal. You didn't used to be normal. I didn't marry normal, Alexi, right? This kind of shows how people in relationships are going to change, right? Over time, they're gonna change. And the some things that you like and know and love about a person now might probably won't be there forever. Some things will for sure. I think there's this sense of people remain the same like in their hearts, right? I think a kind person is gonna be a kind person type of thing. But we can all change in so many ways. And forgive the watermarks on this picture, but this woman looks so discontented. Like she is rethinking her life. And that's kind of how I feel Sharon must have been in this moment. She's like, that's the problem. Everything's so normal. You didn't used to be normal. I didn't marry normal. She's like, what happened? Right? Why am I so unhappy now? Why are you so unexciting? Right? I didn't marry that. She married someone who excited her, who she wanted to learn about and just know. But over time, you're going to get to know people. That's how relationships work. A close, bonded relationship, you're going to get to know someone, and that person might get boring to you. But you have to remember that that's still the same person. So I think that's kind of also what it says about relationships that a good relationship, you're going to get to know the other person. Ooh. I felt better knowing I could hurt her far more than she could hurt me. Then I was revolted. How could I love a person and want to hurt her so much? How could I look at my, forgive the typo. How could I look at my wife, the mother of my children, and feel only the need for revenge? Alexi, right? This man fell into a hole, a deep, dark hole. He was regretful. He was revolted at himself. He hated himself in this moment, right? And he fell into despair. at least momentarily, at very least momentarily, right? And I think you see that in this image where this guy, everything around him is black, right? He is hands in his face. He is disgusted or saddened by something, right? And I think that's how he felt in this moment, right? And in terms of what it says about relationships, is I think it says something true about love, right? Love is not momentary, right? Love perseveres, love moves on. Okay, love does not try to hurt the other person, right? What and this is any kind of love for any kind of relationship, whether it be a romantic relationship or a more friendly relationship. What matters is that you keep your love at the front part of that, because when you don't, you realize in this instance he's talking about beating her, hurting her physically, something evil. So love will drive you to not do that, essentially, to care for other people. And that's what I think it says about relationships, that they need to be built on love. And that's what he did in this instance, and that's why he didn't end up beating his wife, which is a great thing. Can you believe I was happy to hear she'd slept with only a white man? I was certain I was the only Indian man good enough for my Indian wife. Right? I think this shows, and you see this in the picture where this guy's looking in this mirror and he thinks he is the man when he's really not. He's pretty average, right? Everyone in their relationships with other people views themselves as kind of the center of that relationship, right? Oh, I am the coolest, I'm the best. And that's just kind of in our nature. We're selfish by nature. And so you see that. You could really see that, and we should keep that in mind in relationships, that we should try not to be the center of our relationships. Because then you get instances like this where he was like, "Oh, my wife could never have cheated on me with an Indian man because I'm the only Indian man good enough." You're not. You are just a normal person like everyone else. The third time was in his apartment, she said, in his bed. Lunchtime, I fell asleep with him. I hated that. That's why I ended it. Falling asleep with him felt like the worst thing I could do. I never felt evil until I fell asleep with him. I loved this quote, right? In terms of what it says about relationships, and you see this in the picture where this lady is with this man and she's clearly not thinking about him, she's thinking about something else, right? Maybe a husband, who knows? I think it's pretty good for this quote, right? There is more to a relationship than sex, right? There are things that you share with only your significant other or only your best friend that you guys only do together, right? For her, it was apparently sleeping, right? You would hope it would be sex, right? That would be one of those things, but clearly, when you're looking at this through a worldly view, changes. But she realized that this thing that she only shared with her husband shouldn't be shared with anyone else, that that was evil, that what to love someone this deeply means that you have special things with each other, whether that be reading books, going on walks, going on runs, sharing food together, right? There are some things that you do with only your wife and your husband. And she realized in that moment that she had betrayed her husband because she viewed their sex as purely physical, when she realized that their relationship is not something purely physical. So Sharon and I formally rebuilt our marriage, and it was blue collar work, exhausting and painful. We didn't argue more often than before, but we did live in longer and greater silences. There were times when both of us wanted to quit, but we always found the strength to get back up in the morning and get to work, right? And you see this kind of in this picture, right? These are two people who maybe just had a fight. The woman looks angry, the man looks angry, but they are still together in the same room, working together. They did not storm out and leave. Their love endured. Love endures. I think that's what that says about relationships, is that love endures. You can't give up. Love will persevere. We needed those small ceremonies. Our contentment was always running only slightly ahead of our dissatisfaction, Alexi, right? Time spent with another person is so important for relationships. Without that time spent together, um, your contentment will be outrun by your dissatisfaction. Quality time together is what drives relationships, makes them beautiful, it grows them, and it's very, very important. I think that's what that says about relationships. Quality time is key. Um, my works cited page. Thank you so much for your time. Thank you for listening. Appreciate it.